It's, you requested the meeting, so I'm going to, the show's all yours.
All right, and do you want us to give our name and address, or that's unnecessary?
If you're speaking, please give me your name and address.
All right, my name is Eileen DeRolf. I live at 12520 Refugee Road, Southwest, Pataskala, Ohio. And for your benefit, Commissioners, during the first portion of this meeting, I'm going to be providing you information garnered from 3 articles. These articles discuss a number of concerns PJM has with the solar and wind projects they are attempting to add to our grid. You will be given a notebook before we leave today, which includes these 3 articles as well as 6 other related articles. For the benefit of everyone here today, PJM stands for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland Interconnection, LLC. PJM is a balancing authority responsible for ensuring that the electrical transmission grid for most of the area east of the Rocky Mountains, which of course includes Ohio, can handle any new electricity that is added to its grid. PJM services a huge population and a huge area geographically, and no one is more knowledgeable than PJM on the problems currently being caused by the rush to add solar and wind energy to the grid. The first of these articles is titled "More than 800 Solar Projects in Bay Area States Stuck Waiting for Review." This article makes it very clear that at this time too many solar and wind projects are attempting to be reviewed in the hopes of having their electricity from their projects added to the PJM grid. In other words, there's currently a regulatory jam that will prevent in the future the anticipated number of projects from being approved and ultimately added to the grid. This means less electricity than the PJM anticipated would be available to our grid. The second article, titled "Wind and Solar Resources Should Be Removed from PJM Capacity Market P3, explains that the PJM is reporting that too many solar projects are overpromising the amount of electricity they will be able to produce. Again, this means less electricity than the PJM anticipated will be available to our grid. Both of these articles hinted that the PJM is considering, because of these grave concerns, of putting a 2-year hold on many of the solar projects currently in the PJM's pipeline. Last Thursday, April 28, 2022, that is exactly what PJM did. We must be grateful that PJM's management clearly understands the mess the electrical grid would be in without a 2-year moratorium to slow down the number of solar and wind projects in the pipeline, and the need to make sure these solar project companies get their paperwork in order so they stop exaggerating claims. I might even say lying about their claims, because the amount of electricity that they say they produce is indeed the amount they should produce. We are aware you commissioners also have this information. Our concern is that you might actually think we citizens should now assume solar and wind energy do not pose a threat to our communities, or at least not now. That could not be further from the truth. There are solar projects in the pipeline that are still going to come through. The folks pushing these flawed energy sources will never quit. These folks must replace fossil fuels with solar and wind if they are to fully implement the Green New Deal, which is part of the Great Reset. If anything, PJM has now given us, the concerned citizens, the time we need to make sure everyone, politicians, bureaucrats, and everyday citizens, understand just how damaging to our environment it would be if we replaced fossil fuels with wind and solar energy. If anything, PJM has in actuality given us a great opportunity, and we must not waste it. That said, we would like to read to you that 21 reasons solar and wind do not make sense, and it's way beyond a property rights issue. So, with that, I conclude. Thank you.
Anna Reel, 417 Laurel Oak Lane, Heath, Ohio. 21 reasons solar and wind do not make any sense. Many people, when they think of disadvantages of solar and wind, think about property rights and land use. But in reality, the biggest threat solar and wind poses are to the national security. Number one, the massive use of solar and wind will create a severe shortage of reliable energy to America's energy grid. The sun shines about 24% of the time in Ohio. This means that these solar fields are only producing energy in essence 1 day out of 4. Add to that the low angle of inclination of the sun in Ohio, causing the overall power production efficiency of the solar field in Ohio to be 10, maybe 12% at best. And based on these facts alone, it would be tough to justify the large-scale use of solar in Ohio. When you factor in reality, fossil fuels are plentiful, with relatively inexpensive and reliable. Solar is as a sufficient source of energy in Ohio is a dicey proposition at best. Number 2, massive placements of hundreds of solar and wind fields in Ohio and across America will increase likelihood of food shortages across the globe. These solar and wind fields will tie up hundreds of thousands of acres of prime agricultural ground across the breadbasket of America. This is a time when it's becoming clear that food shortages are likely a real threat to our citizens. Using a current map on Ohio's Power Sitting Board website, right now over 83,000 acres of ground is tied up or will be tied up because of solar fields, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Sue Ellen.
Sue Ellen King, 2548 Home Acre Drive, Columbus, Ohio. The third reason is the production of solar cells will greatly enhance the finances of our enemy, China. The majority of solar panels are produced in China, strengthening their economy to the detriment of the American economy. The fourth reason, the increase in the federal deficit to subsidize solar and wind has weakened America financially, causing a decrease in the value of the dollar while fueling inflation. Number 5, the number of our taxes that are used to subsidize inefficient, expensive energy like solar and wind, the less of our taxes are available for much more important national security like the military, education, roads, bridges, etc. The sixth reason, the use of inefficient and highly subsidized solar and wind will create high energy prices, as it appears the current administration in D.C. is aggressively attempting to replace less expensive fossil fuels with more expensive solar and wind. The seventh reason, the higher taxes required to pay off the Green New Deal spending in D.C., as well as the higher cost of expensive solar and wind, will devastate the American's family budget, forcing them to choose between food, heating their homes, or buying clothes for their children. Pat?
Thank you for allowing us this time. My name is Pat Haig. I live at 1069 West Church Street, Newark, Ohio. The ninth reason why solar and wind is not appropriate, by allowing solar and wind projects to destroy the oil industry, millions of products which need oil to be produced, if they're even available, will be more expensive. Another hit to the citizens' wallets and the economy. The 10th reason, solar energy is being used as a political lever to help re-engineering society and destroy capitalism. Corporations, to stay in the good graces of the federal government, must involve themselves in green investments in order to earn from the big banks a good ESG score, which stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance score. Without a good ESG score, the banks will punish the companies by denying them financial support, as the big banks are currently doing to the oil companies. However, if the corporations fall in line and implement to their companies policies to advance social and environmental justices, the government aligned with the big banks will then reward the corporations for helping implement the Green New Deal, which is also called the Great Reset. For example, companies which develop solar and wind will receive huge amounts of subsidies as a reward for advancing the Green New Deal. This is the government's way of controlling what the corporations are allowed to do, and has nothing to do with capitalism. It's instead a form of fascism. If the citizen and their elected officials do not say no to this scheme, capitalism will indeed be replaced by fascism. Thank you.
I'm Emma Stout, 5168 Refugee Road, Southwest, Tascola. In addition to the many national security concerns, there are significant property rights issues associated with solar and wind energy. The solar panels are quite tall, creating quite an eyesore for anyone unlucky enough to live up against the solar field. The land value near the solar field, the solar and wind field, is greatly reduced. The construction of the solar and wind fields can damage the drainage of land downhill from the solar and wind field if during the construction tile running under the energy project is damaged, preventing proper downhill drainage. As solar and wind projects tie up more and more land due to the law of supply and demand, the cost of land will increase, making it more and more difficult for the average American to achieve the American dream of a home on more than a postage-sized piece of land. Joe?
Joe Gertley, 2498 Johnstown Alexandria Road, Alexandria, Ohio. In addition to the many national security and property rights issues, there are also health concerns associated with solar and wind energy. If the solar panels develop cracks due to normal degradation, hailstorms, tornadoes, etc., water can invade the structure and create a fire hazard. Electromagnetic radiation from the solar panels, substations, and power lines may endanger the health of those living or working near these projects. Keep in mind, these citizens are not getting the normal load of EMR. They are going to be massively exposed to EMR. By the time we know for sure the true health risk, it may be too late for those citizens stuck near the fields. The solar fields are likely targets for vandals. The rigged process that allows the development of these energy projects gives most of the advantages to the project's developers and few to the citizen whose community the developer is impacting. Resentment within these communities towards these projects makes them a likely target for vandals. This in turn can interrupt electricity production and cause fires. John?
Thank you. John Hawley, 6969 Sharp Road, Mount Vernon, Ohio. In addition to the many national security, property rights, and health concerns, ironically, there are significant environmental problems associated with solar and wind energy. The 18th point reason why, political semantics have put Ohio's land, water, and wildlife at risk. For some reason, unknown and incomprehensible, these energy products have been allowed by the state of Ohio to be called farms. They are absolutely not growing anything, and as for harvesting sun, so do oil fields, but no one is allowing oil fields to be called a farm. Regardless, due to the bogus semantic game, solar and wind projects can be built on agricultural land without rezoning up to a more appropriate, more stringent zoning category, one which would require a much greater consideration of the impacts these projects have on wildlife, groundwater, wetlands, etc. Some seems a bit inconsistent. The energy companies, the energy sources that is supposedly used to protect the environment uses contorted terminology to avoid protecting the environment, doesn't it? Number 19. Chemicals within solar cells may leach and pollute the groundwater. Cadmium telluride is found in solar cells, is a toxic substance that has a serious risk if it contaminates the surface or groundwater. These panels develop cracks or breaks. Cadmium telluride can leak into the groundwater, into the ground and the groundwater. Number 20. The toxic solar panels and wind turbines are incredibly difficult, dangerous, and expensive to recycle in the United States, and may be sent overseas. But it isn't that just transferring the problem. Isn't that transferring the problem to some more likely poor country, which is still part of our global ecosystem? If you research this problem, the amount of dangerous material that these energy fields that will need to be recycled is beyond staggering. Sadly, there's a 100% likelihood, in order to dodge this extreme cost of recycling of wind and solar turbines here in America, they will end up in landfills or inappropriate dump sites. Thank you. Elaine?
Elaine Kent, I'm at 240 Glencairn Lane, Granville, Ohio. In addition to the many national security, property rights, health, and environmental problems associated with solar and wind energy, there are also concerns with the decommissioning of these energy projects, which should cause one to ask, will the provisions included in SB 52 for the decommissioning of the solar fields be adequate? It is good that SB 52 makes provisions for the cleanup of these solar fields when they've outlived their usefulness. It's also good that SB 52 requires the energy companies to put up a bond to cover the decommissioning cost, and that this cost is reevaluated every 5 years and increased if necessary. But what happens if the company goes out of business, perhaps driven to bankruptcy, as we've seen happens, because of the likely incredible cost required to recycle this immense amount of material? Who covers this cost? The already beleaguered taxpayers? At that point, will the pittance of money the solar company threw at the farmer, the school system, the local government at the inception of this project to entice all of them to buy into this flood energy source really have been worth it? In summary, if solar energy was just a local concern, it might not be such a big deal. Then maybe the big issue would be property rights. Whose property rights should be supported? Those selling or leasing their land to the energy companies, or the people surrounded by these energy fields, living next to systems we don't really know the true cost of? In reality, as this document has attempted to do, the incredibly important decision of whether to allow solar energy to be used in our communities, our state, and our nation must be decided by answering this question. Can the use of expensive, inefficient, relatively unreliable energy sources like solar or wind in a state like Ohio be justified when balanced against the many national security issues, health concerns, property rights concerns, and ironically environmental issues that are created by these flood energy sources? If so much free government money was not involved, the resounding answer would be no to solar energy in Ohio. Thank you.
Judy Kaufmeyer, 29 Roma Court, Southwest, Etna. As was mentioned earlier, you will be receiving a group of articles, one of them entitled "Feds Fined Wind Farm Company Millions for Killing Eagles After Encouraging Wind Power." It's noteworthy because it clearly demonstrates that those in charge of alternative energy policies might not have all their ducks in a row, but they certainly know how to write a good farce. As the title indicates, wind turbines were responsible for the death of a number of eagles, both bald and golden, and of course, untold numbers of common birds and bats. Everyone knows this is a regular occurrence with wind turbines, which leads us to absurdity number one. The same government that claims it is about the environment pays huge subsidies to promote wind energy, knowing it will indiscriminately kill millions and millions of birds and bats. Absurdity number two. Then, this same government, after subsidizing mass bird kills, including endangered eagles, fines the wind company that does so. Absurdity number three. The aforementioned government admits it really doesn't mind that the birds were killed.
The government's main concern is the wind company did not obtain or even seek the necessary permit to allow the birds to be legally killed. Like getting a permit would make the eagles any less dead. Actually, this appears to be more of a government shakedown than an attempt to protect birds and bats. Are these really the kind of people or policies that a sensible thinking person would want to follow? Thank you.
Oh, right now, that's right.
Janine Baldridge, 13678 Foundation Road in Hartford. Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Janine Baldridge. I'm Secretary for St. Hartford Township, LLC. I represent 200 members and 950 people have signed the petition against the Harvey Solar project, which is being proposed in our backyards. I've been asked to come and join these good people today to talk to you about what it's like for your constituents to navigate the OPSB process. The process places undue burden upon residents. Firstly, there's a financial burden. In order to become interveners in our case or to testify at the evidentiary hearing, we have to secure a lawyer. Because solar developers come in and put relevant lawyers on retainer, the only lawyers that we could get, there's one in all of our area, who's willing to represent residents. It costs us $40,000 to secure that lawyer. There'll be another $25,000 for the appeals process. You have a very motivated group of constituents in Hartford Township, and they raised $41,000 in less than 10 days. Every penny of that, $41,000, was a sacrifice for them to part with. $5,000 of those came from my personal retirement fund that my husband has literally bled for in the trades for 30 years to save up. The burden to prove harm is also placed on the residents. We put our lives on hold to do the extensive research necessary to learn whether or not this project might do the kind of harm that we suspect it will. We had to become extremely knowledgeable in things like soil and water management, wildlife management, landscape design and horticulture, the rich Native American history of our township, the endangered species that call our township home, how industrial development affects property values, what solar panels are made of, how they work, and how they don't work. Having done the work to become experts of a sort in how this project would impact our township, we were told we could not use any of that information in our testimony at the evidentiary hearing. No matter how much scientific proof we could provide to back up our claims, because we don't have fancy initials behind our names. Those with the fancy initials would have cost us an additional $6,000 to $12,000 apiece. The so-called experts the solar developer paid to testify at the hearing on their behalf were laughably unqualified, and our lawyer had no problem proving that during the cross-examination. The landscape expert, for example, his experience consisted of, quote, planting a few things around his yard, end quote. I wish I was joking. The solid evidence we had spent almost a year gathering, not allowed. The process allows for incompetence and I would say malpractice on the part of the developers and the governmental agencies such as the ODNR, the EPA, Soil and Water District, the County Engineer, and the SHPO. These agencies are supposed to act as watchdogs to protect our livelihoods and our natural resources, but they prove to be more like foxes guarding the hen house. I can only give one example of what that is in the time I'm allotted, of why that is. It boils down to this. Soil developers do not construct or operate solar installations. The moment they receive final approval, their job is done and they sell the project to another entity to construct. Once the construction of the project is finished, they sell to another entity to operate, someone like BP or Duke Energy. Despite knowing this, the OPSB staff and the governmental agencies I mentioned previously play a little game with the developer, asking them questions they can't answer, getting them to give promises about construction and operation that they won't be around to keep. It goes a little like this: what kind of solar panels are you going to use? We don't know. We'll decide after we're approved. Do you pinky promise you're not going to pollute our waterways? We super pinky promise. But the truth is that they're not going to be around to keep these promises. They're allowed to make these assurances on behalf of entities that aren't in the room. And gentlemen, have you ever abided by a contract signed in your name where you were not in the room to participate in the process? That's not how the law works, but that's how the OPSB process works. All of this smoke and mirror negotiation culminates in a stipulation agreement produced by the developer's lawyers and presented to all relevant parties right before the evidentiary hearing. If you sign that agreement, you're signifying your approval of the project. Every one of those government agencies signed. Save Hartford Township, of course, did not. The result is this. The best we can hope for, if this project is approved, is that if and when damage is done by this project, these entities, which have refused to protect us up to now, will come in after the fact to offer a pound to cure, where an ounce of prevention would have been much more effective. This body's relative silence on this project, combined with the fact that the project leasers in our township have Rick Black signs next to their Yes Solar signs, has created within your constituents a number of questions. The most common one that I hear is this. Are you a feckless political body? Are you negligent? Or are you complicit? Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Jen Bell Duffner. I reside at 8197 Jersey Mill Road in Alexandria, Ohio. And I would like to also put on record that I am a green business owner in Licking County, and I have been a successful green business owner for the past 10 years. That being said, I am completely against solar and wind, and it's like basically saying that junk food is good for you. Now, as we go on, we have just got done hearing how hard it is for the average citizen to push back when solar and wind projects come into their communities. These folks are victims of these solar projects. Fortunately, in the fall of 2021, Senate Bill 52 was passed, which added to 3 members of the Ohio Power Siting Board, which previous to the passing of Senate Bill 5 was comprised of 3 unelected bureaucrats, a township trustee, a county commissioner, located in the proposed project area. In addition, the Senate Bill 52 allowed the trustees of any township to create an exclusionary zones in their townships. These trustees, with the permission of county commissioners of the county where the township is located, are allowed to include their entire township in these inclusionary zones. At that point, no solar or wind project can develop in these exclusionary zones. During the last segment of this meeting, we would like to ask a series of questions about the Senate Bill 52. If we run out of time, we will provide the rest of the questions in writing. That way you can email back answers to the remaining questions. I'll start out with question 1 and 2. What happens when a solar project straddles more than one county or more than one township? Since only one county commissioner and only one township trustee is allowed per project on the Ohio Power Siting Board as voting members, does that mean one or more townships and one or more counties have no direct representation? How will the township resolve this problem? How is the decision reached as to which county commissioner is assigned to the project? Is it always the same one, or does it rotate? And if it rotates, how is the decision reached? Mark.
Wait, will you be willing to answer those questions today? Can you do those if they're
If we
simple?
got, if we got time, I'm willing to answer what I know about the subdivision.
Well, can you reread that number one and let them have them back again, just one at a time?
Okay.
So we get the,
You want me to
we'd love to hear the
read
answer.
the first one and see,
Yeah.
and you guys will answer?
Do you have a problem with it, Rick?
Okay, answer the question.
Thank you.
So the first question is, what happens when solar project straddles more than one county or more than one township?
I would defer to our,
Well, first of all, let me say this. This, to me, I really appreciate where you guys are going because we're looking for answers to all this stuff too. This begins at the township level. The townships need to make sure they have their comp plans, exclude these things if they don't want them in their township. And I can tell you right now, this Board of Commissioners, I can't speak for these two, but I'm pretty sure if the townships don't want it, we're going to say, that's fine. Then we're going, we don't want it. When it comes to how it works between counties, I have no clue how that's going to work. SB 52, I don't even know if it's going to be around in a year. You know, the state threw it on the townships and give us some oversight because people like you were giving them so much heat, they didn't want to deal with it. So they threw it at the local level. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I think I have a question back to that you raised, that kind of concerned me when you said that when the townships don't want it. The thing is that the townships don't want it, the people, townships. You have your trustees that are elected that aren't representing the people.
We're talking to, when, the one you're talking about went in, different rules, different regulations. Township had no authority, nothing over that. Under the new authority, which all that stuff grandfathers in, now we do. Prior to that, this project here, we have nothing.
But
You guys are making a dent in it, though, I'm telling you. You are.
Now, you're saying SB 52 might not be here in a year because they might change it down at the State House and then it's poof. Is that what you're saying?
Possibly.
But we don't know that, so we have to work with what we have. And so right now, I guess you're saying, you know, if it straddles a county, you aren't sure which commissioner gets on the board or gets on the OPSB board. And if it's a township straddler, which is even more likely, some township, based on this particular, the bill that, as it stands, some township or townships are not going to get any representation, and we don't even know how they'll figure out which those are. Is
The
that
way I
correct?
understand the new bill, if the township wants to exclude all of these, that's all they need to do.
Right. We understand that. But we're just asking, how do we know who's representing the townships and the counties if it straddles? That's all this question
He's going
is.
to try to look up the law and see how that works. We
Yeah.
haven't been faced with this yet, but we had a group that would probably be your anti-group, Ohio Land and Liberty Coalition in last week, and they're saying that, you know, there's a pause of 2 years now on just making panels because all the panels are supposed to come out of Toledo, Ohio. You know, that's just another side of the issue that we're laying in a pile here to try to make some of these decisions. So, you know.
They're probably being shipped into Toledo.
They're not, yeah, they're not.
So, again, we're trying to get, and we appreciate coming in here and giving us information because we're trying to gather that information.
this is the first I've heard of the township representative. I mean, are we going to put a township representative on each case?
Well, there's the question, and I believe the answer is yes. What did you say? What do you have, Janine?
What's that?
They would have to do that on each town, each project, in whatever townships it is, a township trustee's got to be on that OSPB board. Yes, I think, the way I read it, but hey, let us know when you find out.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
here,
one
you're
township
here.
trustee.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Mary Bauman, President of Safe Hartford Township LLC, 13195 Freeze Lane, Centerburg. According to Senate Bill 52, 2 local representatives are required to serve on the OPSB as ad hoc members, 1 county commissioner and 1 township trustee or their designees. They would be the chair of each of those boards, and if the chair is involved in the project, then it has to go to a different member to sit on the OPSB.
So it sounds like to me, there's 3 of us here. two would have to vote for the other one to serve.
No, Mr. Black is automatically the
Automatic,
person
because
who's
of the
going to sit
president.
on
Okay.
board if there is a project
All right.
in Licking County. The problem is that with our township, our project is grandfathered, so
Yes.
none of this applies, and we understand that. However, there are still things that you can do as the county commissioners, even though our project is grandfathered. You can still insert yourselves into the process if you read through Senate Bill 52. There are still things that you can do, and the issue now is you need to be working with the rest of the township trustees to get these exclusionary zones put in place. And it's your responsibility to contact the townships and ask them to work on those. Most of these township trustees have no idea what Senate Bill 52 is, and their constituents don't either. That's where the issue is. That's why you guys need to contact them like other county commissioners have done. Allen County, Auglaize County, Hancock County are the three most recent who have done that. They have contacted their township trustees. They have asked their trustees to put resolutions in place on what they want for their specific township. Then those resolutions go back to the commissioners, and then the commissioners vote on if they will accept those resolutions. All three of those counties have done full county exclusionary zones for the unincorporated portions of their counties. There was one township in Hancock that did not approve, and so they were left out of that new resolution. But those three counties, just in the last probably 3 weeks, have signed full exclusionary zones for their full counties. And you can find that information. They would be someone you could contact and find out how they went about the process. But those three counties have, especially Allen and Auglaize, they have huge projects. Auglaize has 4 current projects right now that's going to be somewhere between 10 and 15,000 acres.
And that's something we can look at. I just know in the past, when commissioners go into a township trustee and tell them they need to do this, it's Big Brother jumping on them, and
Right.
they don't.
You're
they
not
don't
telling
wanna-
them, I think
You're
you're not
educating
telling them, you're asking them to work on Senate Bill 52.
And we're trying to do that now. Some of them have woken up. It's tougher in the eastern part of Licking County.
Right.
Some of them just don't want to do nothing. The western Licking County has been involved with it now enough where they know that they got to get their ducks in a row.
Right,
So they're really stepping up.
but this is outside of the comprehensive plans.
Yeah. No.
So this has to be done outside of the comprehensive plans. This is a separate thing.
Because I just read an article out of the Advocate,
Thank you.
and it was in the Petoskey Standard, and they were talking about the merger with St. Albans and Jersey, and they were talking about how, they could do, a jet, or they could do various zoning things, but there wasn't one word said in there about protecting against solar. So they could be protecting themselves, in the more traditional zoning way. And solar can come in the way it's called a farm, and it doesn't have to, it can buy any agricultural land it wants. And there's no mention in there. And it made me believe that they don't know that there's a whole problem coming at them, particularly with Intel in town. And if they don't set these exclusionary zones up, they're in trouble. And that, I would think that township, above all townships, has got a lot coming at them. But that one, you need to say, hey, dude, you're busy, but you need to know this piece of the puzzle for protection, I would say. So some of these questions, because of Janine's information, we'll read them, and if we've already answered it, we'll just move on. Okay, so,
Martha's got she's up next with some of the questions she has.
I have an answer for one of your questions.
Yes.
About multiple counties or multiple townships.
Yes, please.
How's, SB 52 specifically deals with that. It says if you have multiple townships, one member from those townships will be selected by majority vote of all of the township trustees. So if you have 3 township, you have 9 trustees. They vote to select one of their members. That's all.
Good to know.
Similar process with the counties.
Three.
The 2 boards, 3 boards, whatever counties, they collectively select one of their members to be members.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Martha Liberiter, 13047 National Road, Thornville, and I have 2 questions for you.
have you alerted township trustees, and we're kind of touching on this now, in Licking County about SB 52 and the very great and urgent need to create an energy exclusionary zones? And then in what way, if any, are you helping the trustees set up their exclusionary zones? We just kind of touched on that. So number 4.
So you don't have any definite, okay, we're calling this township and these are the things we're going to tell them and these are the ways we're going to help them, or are you just kind of sending them emails, or, what is your process, or do you have a process at this point to get them in the game on this?
I would say something we're going to be looking at real closely, probably real soon. No, we don't have a plan in place right now.
Okay.
I will say this, I have been trying to get a meeting with the Township Association by going through their president now for 3 months. It's very, very hard. Very, very hard to do. I'm hoping to have one May 17th on an update on Intel. I hope we can get 20% of them there for that meeting. If they do, this might be a place to introduce that as a, hey guys, you need to look at that. I wouldn't have any problem with that.
No, I don't either.
But it's really, really tough to get these guys in a room with us. It's been, what, 3 years since we've been invited to?
Yeah. I mean, their association has not met 3 years because of COVID.
Okay.
But it's something we need to do.
Yeah.
We need to do. We have no problem in doing
You
it.
just have to figure out the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
How to do it.
All right. Well, we appreciate
We would have no problem in doing that.
Just as prior to, by the way, for you that don't know who I am, I'm staff attorney for the commissioners. I'm an elected official, although I used to be the county prosecutor. And I'm speaking from that experience. And I see it to these gentlemen, townships saying, we need help. Help us with this, that, or the other thing. But they don't tell us what help they're looking for. To take and do it for them? To provide funding because they want to hire somebody to do it themselves? They just say, help us, with no idea what. And this county's got 25 townships. And the answer to that question as to what these help is going to be different for each of them. Well, that's what's missing. These guys are being asked to help them with no plan of what help. Help us do a comprehensive plan. Help us hire engineer so-and-so so we can do it ourselves. We don't have the money. Your township trustees need to tell us, not just we need help. What help do you have in mind? Hiring somebody so you can do it, or you want us to do it for us? Because then if we do it for you and you don't like it, it's the big brother mentality.
Well, we would hope an exclusionary zone is a lot less complicated than a comprehensive land use plan.
No, not really. It might be, sure, if you have more consensus, but you know property owners are saying, hey, not my property. Wait a minute. I'm not sure it's going to be even easier. But township lines don't stop with topography. Areas suitable for solar or wind don't stop just because it's a township line there. It might stop because there's a big valley or a big... So comprehensive plans are wonderful. If you could make a comprehensive plan that's square like our townships. Ideally, comprehensive plans would be really valuable on a straddle multiple townships. The 161 corridor, how many townships does that go through? That ought to be one comprehensive plan. That's where the businesses are going now.
Yeah, but we want to keep our government local. We want our locals.
I know, but I get that. But nothing stops multiple townships from working together and say, let's hire one person to do comprehensive plan because we share a common border, route. And so one plan focuses on those portions of the townships that have similar needs.
Well, we appreciate that.
But, so get your townships to itemize, this is what we need. These guys will be much easier to answer the question, we can do whatever we can.
So you think if we would go to the townships then would be initiated to have to do something because somebody came to them?
You know,
So it's we bring the subject, then they have to
that's
deal
where
with
I was going to go.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we get a hold of the president of the township, Licking County Township Association, and say, these folks want to meet with you. You need to get your township trustees there. You guys know the subject. I've heard all this, but I don't know the subject matter as well as you guys know it. You know, I'm a county commissioner. They look at me as somebody putting a thumb on it. You're where the rubber hits the road. You're the one that's making it go. And it's a big difference.
Well, I think, how many of you would be willing to take this on the road and go to a township trustee, a big meeting? All right, I mean, so we could do that, and we actually, that is in our plans down the road.
If you think about it, I'll give you you got an extra book here to give?
I don't know if it has their meeting times.
Yeah.
They,
See this?
yeah, this does not have the, you know, you need to know their meeting dates, times,
Right.
and locations. Their old directories had that, but they have not met for 3 years,
Yeah.
so they don't have a current directory.
Could
And a
you
lot of them-
facilitate that, though, for us, if you set up the meeting?
I would prefer that we not,
Oh, I see.
because it's coming from us down.
Okay.
I would prefer that you guys, this is the way we're supposed to work right here.
Right, well, we
This
got,
is redress agreements. You come in to your elected officials and say, look at this, listen to this. Because I want to tell you what, I've heard all this, I have the same questions. I don't know how we deal with it. There's too many too many questions unanswered still. That's why I appreciate you coming in, gives us information, gives us more to look. Should we do a countywide moratorium? I don't know. I still feel it should come from the townships up.
township-wide moratorium on solar, or a
Just
moratorium on
exclude
what?
it.
What?
Just have them excluded.
Yeah,
Then we'll put our blessing on it.
yeah, okay, you would, all right, go ahead.
I would, I don't
Yeah.
know about these two.
Individual owners will be too.
The statute allows the commissioners to do restriction areas, okay? And yes, they could try to do it countywide, but you're gonna get some resistance to that.
Big resistance.
Big
Yeah.
resistance.
That's okay. If we do go township by township, we can get it done.
That's the point, is if you have a township, the general consensus, we like our township, or a portion of 2 townships collectively, restricted. And they come to the commissioners, hey, would you restrict these areas of our township? These guys probably are gonna say, sure.
Well,
But to suggest they should thrust it across every.
What's
across
next?
the county.
What else do we need to deny, you know? And it starts a door I'm not going to go
That
through.
request by law, for them to do a resolution like that, requires a public hearing. So if they did it countywide, we would have, every township have to be served.
As council, is there a way in which to put a referendum for a township or for the whole county in which to create, to at least force these people to address a moratorium, whether it's township-wide or?
Yes and no, not by your terminology. A referendum is putting something on the ballot to ratify or undo a decision that's already been made. And this House Bill, Senate Bill 52 has that. So if the commissioners did a restriction zone, somebody could do a referendum against that.
But is there a way to which to bring it to the
I'd have to
forefront?
look, Ohio recognizes the ability of the citizens to do an initiative. That's the terminology
Okay.
you would have. I don't.
I mean, we're not talking about a constitutional amendment for the Ohio
Right.
Constitution.
I will say this, I was in DC last week and I talked to some of our senators and congressmen on this, and this is exactly what I told them. I said, we have a dinosaur because I believe these solar panels, these electric cars are a dinosaur. They're a 10-year period and they're going to go away, but we got farms being tied up for 30 years. They're going to be possibly a,
40 years.
a hazard when it comes to recycling, all this stuff. We have no clue. And I had one senator says, you know what? 5 years from now, you won't be thinking about electric cars because there's stuff coming down so quick that all of it's going to change. And to me, that's why what you guys are doing is so important. because it's possibly slowing it up enough to see what's coming. Because, as I've said before, it used to take a computer the size of this room to take a man to the moon. Now it takes a size less than this. It took a solar panel, half the size of that wall. Tomorrow it may be a dime or a nickel.
Well, it's
And all
all
this
great,
stuff is on the verge of changing, so.
but we can't phase out fossil like right now,
No.
because that's kind of what they're doing. There'll be a big gap in order to transition, and what happens to our electrical needs during that gap scares the pants off of, I think, probably all of us. You
You
know?
have another question?
Yes.
I do. If township decides to exclude their entire township from the solar and wind, I think we have answered this though. Development, will you allow them the right to chart their own destiny?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Forrest, you're up, a couple more.
I'm Forrest Cooper Ryder, 13047 National Road, Windmill. I've got a couple of my own personal things I'm going to throw out here first. I'm a farm boy. My thoughts, always thought I'd love to have a farm up in the Crook area. My thoughts to see, go up there and seeing that rows and rows of solar panels just really turned me off. The other thing that I found out quite a bit of this today, but there is so much money involved in this, going to here, there, and everywhere. They're trying to buy the whole thing. And I don't know whether they may get it done. They're going to try pretty hard. Now, that's all I got to say about that. And my question is, are you attempting to educate the trustees, we just talked about this, on the negative issues associated with the solar in order to counterbalance the endless, it isn't solar wonderful message being spread by the government and the media and the project developers? We already talked about this some, but I'll read the other question, then you can do what you want. Are you familiar with the many direct and indirect ways solar and wind energy are negatively impacting our communities and our county? If so, could you share some of them with us?
County is the country.
That's it.
The only negative I've heard is I've heard wind energy in this state's about done. That there'll be very few windmills. We're hearing that them will probably be taken away. As far as solar, I'm not hearing anything as far as the process of putting them in being rolled back or anything. Again, we've got groups like this group against, we got groups, the other group, that's for. And it's trying to gather all the information to get an honest idea how this thing should happen. And
if you look at all the ways they're putting money, places, and I just found out some of this today, but their money, they've got money going everywhere. They're trying their best to buy it. And I won't even begin to tell you something, but it's,
so
they've got different people, different farmers, and they're getting the trustees, they kind of went to them and they're buying up, they want to use their farm,
So Forrest, you know their answer to that question? Instead of leasing it, we'll just buy it.
Yeah.
So then where do you go?
But that's huge announcement. But here's the thing.
They
If this was
get the tax liability if they buy the land. They don't want that.
They want
They want the
that.
subsidies. They want someone else to be responsible for that land, not them.
Yeah.
You need to
That's
get
possibly-
more knowledgeable about the solar industry and what they're actually doing
They don't want to own the
in your
land.
county, under your nose.
I had a friend of mine, he's a lawyer up in Mount Vernon. He had them come by and wanted to lease 300 acres of his farm up in Richland County. And of course, he turned them down, but he said there was a lot of money being thrown at it. They wanted to lease it for 30 years. And from what I gather from the technical specs from the manufacturers, these panels don't last 30 years.
Last two.
They last 20.
Yeah, and at least
Well,
$1
it
per
said
day.
15 years on this one
Yeah.
manufacturer's,
Right.
but like most of those items, they degrade over time.
And at least dollar today, what's it worth 30 years from now? I said, at least dollar today, what's
Yeah.
it worth 30 years from now?
Yeah.
Eileen, how many people do you still want to speak that haven't spoken?
We really don't have any, so
Okay,
we're,
okay, I just want to make sure.
we got this nice and tight for you, because
Okay.
we got 5 minutes left to send it there. Well, there you go.
Hey,
I do have a question.
I like these folks, go for it.
But there's something, and I've read, and John, maybe you can help me, or Eileen, that a lot of these people that are being approached by these companies, they give them money and are told, do not discuss this with the public.
It's true.
Yes.
They come in
So,
years before.
So when you hear something like that, you really have to have concerns, because what are they trying to hide? And that's the biggest concern we should have as citizens of this state, is the fact that things are going behind our backs that we have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And that includes everybody in this room. That's a big concern.
Judy, did you have something?
Yes, okay, you were saying the best way to go is go to your township trustees, have them put it on the agenda and discuss it, right? About those exclusionary areas, that's the way to start.
Yes, because that's the only way, A, we're going to these guys are going to get a sense of, what do you want for your community?
Okay,
They don't live in all your communities.
right, okay.
Make it, so,
Well, that just clarifies, that's,
and then
Step
make it
one.
easy for everybody.
Step one.
So we don't make one rule that's countywide, it may not work countywide, you know? But the
Got it.
restriction can be for your township, the northern part of your township and the adjoining southern part of the next township. Whatever, you know, the consensus is.
step one.
Yeah, that's step one.
If House Bill 52 is repealed or Senate Bill 52 is repealed, would these exclusionary zones just be voided?
Or grandfathered, and who knows?
It's possible to know.
And that may never happen. I just heard from a representative that that's possible. Because, you know,
That would be entirely up to the legislature deciding whether to do some kind of grandfather or erase them.
Was there a mechanism before Senate Bill 52 to keep these out, or?
No. Elaine?
From what I can gather, farmers have the right to say, you can't change, take away the value of my property, especially how things are right now with everybody, but especially our farming industry. If SB 52 is beefed up to the point where any costs associated future getting rid of the potentially toxic material when things go bad or whatever, also, you go after the people for medical lawsuits. We don't know if there's harm, but what if there is harm? If we can make it cover any potential cost, it's not going to be attractive to the farmer. And it's not going to be attractive to the industries that we know they're going to go away. They're going to, run up into the moonlight. They have to put money down. They have to have some kind of a bond that says, if this happens, we're coming after, we're going to use this money. Then that would put it all to rest, because it's not a quick buck that they come here, they lie to the people, they take advantage of them, and they leave. Because no one knows what's going to happen. And we do know there's a lot of potential bad that will happen. I don't know how you do that, but
See, a lot of these it's corporate. There's one project here in Ohio. This was when they were going over Senate Bill 52. They had proponent testimony. Solar Birch project here in Ohio was signed an agreement with Amazon. And actually BP, British Petroleum, even though they have the oil and gas, they have the other, the whole product spectrum. They have a signed agreement with these things.
yes.
They probably don't know which way
And they're probably doing it to increase their ESG score, because those oil companies have a terrible ESG score. So they're now incentivized to get into solar, which is their competition. I mean, this is so un-American, it is breathtaking. And it's so bad for Americans, breathtaking. Now you had a question?
My whole concern goes back, because I'm a green business owner. So I think that a lot of times we're missing the point here. When you talk to the senators, when you were in Washington, D.C., your wind and solar, it's not going to save you, save this country from, it's not a secure, they're not going to improve the security of this country, wind and solar. Nothing like that's going to happen. As a green business owner, I'm reliant on making new initiative things for, that environmental friendly things, but I do that on my own, not with government funded entities. And this government funded stuff never goes through because they don't compete with other businesses. So they are never successful in anything that they do. They have to rely on our money and our tax money to make it. They would not even be here right now if they weren't getting tons of money from our tax dollars. They cannot compete because what they produce is not efficient and it doesn't work. I depend on oil and gas. Oil and gas is so much better for the environment than this stuff is. And we're going off false information. You're fighting for a green stuff that isn't even green. Your oil and gas is much more safer than this stuff is. And I'm dependent on gas being low for me to do competitive things as an entrepreneur. Because that's where new initiative things happen. So when you're talking to senators and people that are higher up there, when they're really far away from how things really work from the bottom up and how we make our community and make more jobs and make things more successful and keep our taxes low and our prices better and making things more efficient, it's through entrepreneurs. We will come up with the ideas. It will happen with our own money and our own initiatives. And when we do that, we're competing with other businesses, and that means we're going to be strong. And that's why I've been in business for 10 years. And that's why I'm growing. I don't take money from the government.
And you won't get no argument here.
You
won't get none
this
here.
stuff is just
They tried it in
focus.
2008, it went backwards. The people I talked to in DC would agree with you 100%. The problem is there's a handful of them, so
But
elections matter.
that's why we have to have you guys, we're trying to be at your back, but you've got to stand strong because this is insanity.
$8.1 billion.
Yes, I would defy anybody.
Wasted.
Yeah, I would defy anybody to tell me why solar is good. It would be good if the sun could somehow come down an electrical wire, but the way it works doesn't work. So pie in the sky plans that are using our money to bribe farmers and politicians and I'm not saying you guys, but this is not at all acceptable.
And Eileen, if we were to make that happen, come down into a power line from the sun, it ain't gonna happen from the government.
No,
It's gonna happen from the entrepreneurs that come up with it, not help from the government.
I want to just.
Okay. Then give us 3 more minutes than we deserve, then we're great.
Well, that's not, we're not gonna penalize you, so don't worry.
If you want our cards, get our cards, you can always email us and we will answer to the best of our ability.
But can I make a comment, just one comment? The thing is, we have to start local. Our community needs to go to our local people, and we need to have, that we can rely on them to do the right thing for our community. Because down the road, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's going to affect your family that you leave behind, just like ours.
We're going to meet you in the hall in a minute, and I have a question for you.
On that topic, keep in mind your local officials